checking your microphone level to see if it was getting the noise from the heater, and it's not. It's getting it out like it's supposed to.
It's not.
Huh? Oh, it's doing what it's supposed to.
Oh yeah, looks like it's working fine. Okay, guys. Hi. We're here. Yes, we are. Carla says, hi, Siofra and Ian. How was your week? Oh, incredibly busy and somewhat stressful, but it's over, so yay. Teresa says, I'm first. Well, apparently not. Suzanne says, hello from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hi, Suzanne. Teresa says, oops, second. Now you're first, according to the Crown. It's a funny thing the way they do that. But welcome. So Suzanne is also in Manitoba. Teresa is in Manitoba as well. I'm not sure how far she is from Winnipeg. Love the Canadians that are in our group. Yay. I love everybody that's in our group. It is pouring at the moment. We have got some wonderful rain happening. It wasn't that rainy when I first came out here, but then it started coming down. And we definitely need the water, so I guess that's good. We were just having a very busy week. There was lots of appointments and travel and all this other stuff. Robert says, yo, everyone. Hi, Robert. But yeah, it was running around from one end of the county to the other several times in different directions. So, yep, things are fun. Suzanne says, ooh, cool. Hello to fellow Manitoban. Ian says, welcome to all. Please feel at ease to talk on an appropriate subject.
Just in case there's anybody here who hasn't been on the live chat before.
So far, not, but you never know. Teresa says, raining here too. Snow up north and in Saskatchewan.
Hello.
Carla says, loving, but I guess I'm living it too. And NM says, hello from Italy. Welcome. It must be pretty late where you are, or early, depending on how you look at it. Brianna says, hey. Hi, Brianna. Carla says, Italy. Hey, my people. Oh, Carla apparently is Italian. Robert says, nice amethyst necklaces. Thank you. I put them on today. We had a fun full moon on Monday, and the hysterical thing that happened was our cat Bugsy decided we might be dead. And so he kept walking back and forth between Ian's door and mine and screaming at the top of his lungs to see if we were okay.
It's really loud.
Right in the middle of what we were trying to do. It was quite a challenge to maintain focus, but I succeeded, so I was pretty proud of myself. And Violet says, hi, you two. My apology for being so very absent of late. I almost came to eviction, but was saved by a small inheritance, so to speak. It was really a cousin helping me out. Grateful. Well, I'm glad that you're safe and okay and not homeless. Gabrielle says, Gabrielle. Carla says, laughing. That was hilarious. Yes, it was. So now we know if both of us are absent from the living room,
Cat gets worried.
then we need to lock the screen door between us so he doesn't open it.
And it doesn't take too long for the cat to get worried. 15 minutes and he's concerned. We're not in the living room with him.
Yes, yes. And sometimes he'll leave the living room, go into the back room, and then forget and get worried. And he'll be behind us, just crying his heart out. Where did you guys go? And we're like, we're still sitting right here. Just come around, you'll see us. Oh, there you are. So yes, not sure if he's getting dementia or if it's just his personality, but yes.
I think it's just his personality.
Teresa says, so was that recorded? I'm sure it was, and I put the link up on the channel as well as on Facebook on our group. So the link is there. Carla says, "Aw, yeah, it's a silly boy."
Yep, he's a very, very friendly cat. Very gregarious.
Gregarious.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, he's not egregious. He's gregarious.
Gregarious, yes.
Although his meow is somewhat egregious, it would seem.
Yep.
Violet says, I have had a real hard time here since Dawn passed. I thought I felt the need to enlist Hounds of Hell to make a hostile entity attachment leave. Have you heard of such a thing? I Googled it. I've never used a Hound of Hell. I don't believe in hell, so I don't use their hounds. So, no, I haven't.
A good image for an elemental or something to scare people, though.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carla says, mine taught me that she likes to be pet while she eats. I've never had this happen before. Interesting. Violet says, all I got was a prayer. If prayers cut it, I'd be okay a long time ago. Robert says, Siofra, is it important to take iodine in extra doses if our pineal gland is not at peak open? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure that pineal gland actually relates to psychic stuff, even though
Yeah.
a lot of people
Think
think
it
that
does.
it does, but I don't know that it actually directly relates myself in physiology wise.
Right.
So, yeah.
No one's ever told me anything about my pineal gland, so I don't know.
Well, supposedly, it has to do with the third eye opening.
Well,
and that,
yes,
but
I know
yeah.
that, but I mean, as a doctor,
Yeah.
has never mentioned it to me, so I have no clue as to whether they've ever even looked at the thing.
Yeah, so,
So-
I guess we don't actually have an answer for that question.
I guess not. Aaron says, hello. Hi, Aaron.
But thank you for asking.
And Carla says, any thoughts on the Kabbalion?
Fine.
The
Well,
Kabbalion?
like what kind of thoughts? You mean like the Kabbalion that was the book written by, quote, 3 initiates?
That would be the
unquote?
only one I'm familiar with.
And which one of them was Paul Foster Case that wrote it? Though they don't say that, it just says by 3 initiates, but Paul Foster Case was one, and I suspect 2 other initiates of Golden Dawn, but I don't know. But, yeah. I think it's good. I'm not sure that it's all that useful the way they wrote it, but I'd say if you incorporate that stuff in, it is a bunch of somewhat accurate ways of putting forth the ideas and things they're talking about and cosmic processes and the various details of things. So I'd say overall it's pretty good, but the format or layout of something didn't jibe with me that much. The information is good though, but I found it kind of like dry and boring and not as useful in that format.
Well, Paul Foster Case was known for some of his.
Well, it's lots of very intellectual stuff and complicated, but it's not so much that. It's just that the way they put all the things in that book that they talk about was all more theoretical than practical, kind of. I mean, things that make sense, but not really how you apply it practically. I don't know. It's honestly, it's been a long time. I've got it somewhere in my book collection, but yeah, it's honestly been a long time since I read it. But I think I would pretty much trust everything that it says because I consider Paul Foster Case, out of all of them, probably the most advanced person out of the Golden Dawn myself, as far as actual spiritual progress. And he may have actually had, he remembered some of the Kabbalah from his past lives, and I think deep within the builders of the Adytum, he may have the actual Kabbalah in the same way that Barden did, but in the Hebrew Kabbalah. Because from what I've seen that's openly written about his work, he seems to actually be there. So I would trust it more than almost any other books as far as the information because of who put it out in that. So it's a mixed bag.
Violet says, since I met you, I have complained of this. Do you have any new thoughts, or should I leave it where we left it last? I have no new thoughts on how to get rid of the thing that is harassing you. I've put out a whole bunch of videos on the subject of psychic self-defense, and that is always my approach. So, I'm sorry, I don't have anything new to add. Carla says, yeah, by the one guy. Teresa says, it's Thanksgiving weekend in Canada. I don't celebrate it except for making a good meal. I roasted a chicken and made a stuffing using sourdough rye. Interesting flavor. Carla says, some think he was honoring a couple of people who passed before him. Same.
It could be, but considering he also had, I mean, since he was in the Golden Dawn, he also knew a lot of initiates. He knew Dion Fortune and Aleister Crowley and you know, McGregor Mathers and his wife Moina and Dr. Barrage and all the Golden Dawn members from that original. So he knew lots and lots of initiates, including there was the Rosicrucian Society in Anglia that I believe he was part of for a while or helped to form. So I think he knew Franz Hartmann. So he had a lot of initiate friends. So it could have been any one of a combination of people, but it might have also been, since he said he remembered the Kabbalah itself from the past, and he seems to have been close enough. It could have been. That's about all I know on it for sure.
Carla says, same Ian, seems pretty on point, but yeah, boring. I think his pen name was Marca Sharada or something like that.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Violet says, thank you, I will circle back to your videos. I put them all in one playlist. Jen says, hello everyone, happy Sunday. Hi Jen. Carla says, nodding head at Rosicrucian. Robert says, Siofra, is it true that by doing a fast, which consists of raw fruits and distilled water, can help clear the pineal gland? I don't know if it helps the pineal gland or not. I have no clue, since I'm not worried about mine and never have worried about it. But as far as fasting is concerned, it can certainly help get your body going.
I see. So, see, we're not talking about the same thing here. This Kabbalion that I'm seeing here, when I do a search for it, has the name of William Walker Atkinson. And so there was the original one. If you look on Wikipedia, it says it was originally published in 1908 by the Three Initiates. So this wasn't recent. Is often identified as the New Thought pioneer William Walker Atkinson. Well, I guess he did live about that time. Okay. Mouse works attributed to Theron Q. Okay, so sorry. Don't mean to keep going on about that, but yes, it's the same guy. It turns out. So.
So Sophia says hello. Hi, Sophia. Carla says, I don't think we need to decalcify our pineal. So back to the water. One thing, distilled water over a long period of time is dangerous to your body because water wants to have a certain amount of minerals in it. So if you drink distilled water for too long, you will get rid of your own calcium and soften your bones. So if you're going to do this, you've got to do it for a short period of time. It's not really safe to do over a long period of time. And if you're going to do that kind of a fast, you also need to think about what might be happening in your intestines. So Edgar Cayce, he had like an apple fast that you could do, or a buttermilk and banana fast, and he always recommended after the third day doing an enema in order to get rid of the stuff that's collected, because then your body's going to reabsorb the toxin straight from your intestine back into your bloodstream. So if you're going to do any kind of fasting, do your research, know what you're doing, and be aware of all these potential risk factors and be as sensible as you can. And too much fruit can cause a problem with your pancreas. So you can end up with pancreatitis if you consume too much fruit at a time. and end up in the hospital. So you want to be, mindful of that. So that's, but whether it helps the pineal gland, I have no idea. And like I said, I'm not worried about it. If I have a calcified one, it doesn't matter because my third eye works perfectly well. And if I don't know about it. So I have nothing to say, I guess.
I should apologize. I'm going to apologize about that whole thing. Sorry. Don't mean to go back to the Kabbalion again, but it turns out I was wrong about Paul Foster Case having a part of it. So just ignore everything I said. I was just full of it. Except that I was, oh well.
Yeah. Okay.
My mistake. Sorry.
We are human.
If I say something wrong, I want to correct it.
Absolutely. It's always a good idea. I like to do that.
Yeah.
So, Violet says, do you play with Chat GPT yet? Chat GPT? Do you think this hostile entity harassing me is an actual part of my psyche? Sometimes I feel like a puppet to someone else. All I can say is, if it is external, you have the power to make it stop. If it is internal, you have the power to make it stop. So it doesn't matter. I mean, my philosophy when it comes to that is figuring out why it's happening, who's doing it, what's happening is secondary and not necessarily useful information, because the approach that I would take would be the same regardless. And that's shoring up your own psychic defenses and claiming your authority to control your environment and setting your wards and setting your barriers and not allowing stuff to happen. So,
yeah. If you're dealing with internal things, the way to deal with that is to not feed them. So, if you think it might be internal, the thing to do is to avoid concentrating on it, focusing on it. Basically, if it's an internal thing, a lot of times they're like larvae, and you'll starve them out. They live on the thoughts and emotions, and a lot of times if it's one that inspires anger, it's because a lot of them are that because of anger. It might try to keep you remembering something that happened in the past over and over again to keep making you angry because it feeds on that. And so the way to conquer all those things is just to take control of it, decide you're not going to dwell on it, deal with it, you're not going to let it upset you, which is of course easier said than done. But basically, the more you put it out of your mind, if it's something internal, the more you put it out of your mind and forget about it, the less it's going to bother you until it basically starves and goes away.
And actually, same advice if it's external, because having attention paid to it is one of the ways you invite it in.
Well, sometimes you might want to block something like I had a boss that was a transmitting telepath, and I had to block him all the time because he came into the store, and I'd know if he was angry before he got there, and he transmitted so much. So sometimes you just need to block some negative things, but
Well, right. That's part of how you take care of yourself.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to deal with those and block them, not just ignore them. But the internal things, you can starve them out and they'll go away. Kind of the same with the external things. If you don't give them what they want, you don't give them attention. Don't let them get what they want, which means put them out, push them away, banish them, use a reflecting mirror, whatever you need to do.
So, Carla says, I see people on the Reels feature on YouTube playing with ChatGPT, but I don't think it's real, as in spontaneous. I share some of the clips because they're hilarious. Violet says, nice.
Well, ChatGPT can come up with some pretty strange stuff sometimes.
Well, yeah, I told you guys.
Legitimate.
I told you guys how it made up a whole bunch of animal stories from the video that I did on animal experiences, that I told it to write as a chapter in a book. And instead of taking the animal experiences I actually had, it made up a whole bunch that never happened. So, I mean, yeah. It's not necessarily reliable when it says that kind of stuff. So Just a Girl says, hello everyone, you look so beautiful today, Siofra. Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much. And today I'm doing pretty well. Violet says, I just haven't been able to do anything. Too busy with survival. Sylph says, I got myself some plants, rue, rosemary, basil, lavender, initially to make infusions. Is it possible to work with their spirits through vision? Yeah, you can certainly connect with them through the spirit world, absolutely.
It's highly recommended. I've had plants talk to me a number of times. They don't always tell me interesting things, I have a particular meditation I do when I'm trying to get into touch with nature that seems to help. But yeah, I've been talked to by mushrooms. I've had a monk's hood talk to me. I've had a pine tree tell me to use its needles to make an infusion that'll help me with my vitamin D problems and sunlight. I was having a seasonal
SADS.
allergy, if
Yeah.
disorder, and a pine tree told me to use its needles. I might have been a fir tree, but
No,
yeah,
it was a pine tree.
to use its needles to drink for that, and that worked, and that helped. The monk's hood told me that it could help me with my problem of getting out of my body, uh, which it probably could, but when I looked it up, it might do that by killing me. So, you can't just accept what a plant might tell you without looking it up because it was accurate, except, I don't want to die during the process. So you have to be careful because plants don't, they can show you things, but they don't have that, in human intelligence to interpret them. So that's up to you. So yes, I've had trees talk to me. Absolutely, it's worth the attempt, I think.
Yeah. And sometimes they can tell you interesting ways. You have to be careful with rue, from what I understand. It can cause skin irritation, so wear gloves when you work with it physically. Rosemary is supposed to be exceptionally good for memory and for your mental aspects and so forth, and really good for cleansing your house. You can burn it, you can boil it, you can drink it, make a tea out of it. There's a lot of benefits to rosemary, and it's a really good protective plant. And of course, lavender is great for relaxation and all kinds of things too, and dream pillows and for sleep, etc. Carla says, Ian, I was totally following you because that guy knew them all too. They think he went by a pen name and put out some other books too under that name I'm totally misspelling.
Yeah.
So Brianna says, if our egos don't really exist and there really is no personal self, how can I still feel like I have agency? Because it can seem like free will doesn't exist from that perspective.
Interesting question.
Since I feel like I have free will, I should live like I do, but sometimes I feel sad that I'm not an independent entity and I'm ultimately a mirage in God's consciousness.
Okay, this is a good question, and I want to actually deal with this a little bit. First off, you exist. Your ego is based, and so let's put it this way. Um, the illusion is not in what's there, the illusion is in your perception. The illusion is in your perception of a personal self and history, and how that comes about is through the things you learn and the things you're taught and the things you think. And this comes about because of identification with the mind and thinking you are your thoughts, and then you put who you are, your self image, because of all the past things that people think I'm a plumber or I'm a this. And the fact is, those are all things you do, they're not things you are. So you don't really lose anything except your illusions, okay? And when you've reached that point, you still have your mind and it can function, but it's no longer in control of you. All you do is free yourself. You free yourself from all the inhibitions and things. All things basically come down to, you get angry about things that happen to you during the day and all this and that. And they all come down to this, things, especially like this person slighted me or somebody's really rude to you and you think you should be respected, that kind of thing bothers you. Well, that's all the egoic thing. That's all the false you. So all that goes away. You still have free will. You're not controlled by anything. In fact, once you reach that point, you have way more free will than you do now. Most people are totally hindered. They can't act other than the way they do because of their own makeup, what's built into them, the way they've been taught. especially the traumas they've been through in the past, all those things. So you can't really act freely. But what you lose is only those bad things that keep you from acting. And once you're free of that stuff, you can act much more freely and you have much more free will. So um, the problem is the manner of talking about it leads people to be confused because you can't really talk about it. Ultimately, you have to kind of reach an understanding about it, a feeling, understanding, because talk only can lead you in circles and go so far because you're talking about a feeling beyond thoughts where you've released that mind, that egoic self. So you really don't lose anything. In fact, you gain a whole bunch. You gain the whole universe by doing it. Now it's not just you isolated in the universe. You know, you gain all that. You gain compassion and sympathy that you never would have had because now everybody out there you feel is as important as you. You don't feel more important anymore. So what you're losing is nothing bad. You're actually gaining a whole lot. It's just the talking about it is the problem.
Language is
Yeah.
linear by its very nature.
So, but sometimes you feel sad that you're not an independent, intimate entity. You will be once you lose that. You become an entity and not a mirage in God's consciousness. I wouldn't use that word at all, but yeah, no, I wouldn't use that a mirage at all. You're real. The problem is what you think is you is not really you. And that's about all I can say about that in a short time without going into like hours long discussion on it. But yeah.
So Violet says a plumber kid made me lose my cool recently. The next day I heard he was let go. Not my doing, but by then I lost it. I'm all regained now. Carla was laughing about me. Beth says, hi everyone, I missed a lot. My grandson is here, so I'll probably listen, maybe comment or two. Sending light and love to all of you.
Well, thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth. Violet says, enough non my issues, positively only. Robert says, you bet. Okay, Beth. Hi. S. Steele says, may I ask? I understand angel numbers are supposed to get your attention. Mine definitely do. But how do you know if the numbers are meant to serve as a warning or a you're on the right track? I have no clue because I don't pay attention to angel numbers.
Yeah, I'm not convinced they have. I guess I would consider it as like any form of divination. What they say here is the way it's described is angel numbers are seen as a way for the universe to communicate with you, with each number sequence carrying a unique meaning. So I would say exactly the same thing about the tarot. Forms of divination like that are a way for the universe to communicate with you. So if you are in tune with that, and if you believe it, and if you understand the symbols and what the numbers mean, then they'll have as much meaning to you as any other form of the universe communicating to you because the universe will definitely communicate with you. But how you perceive that happening, what form you want to use of divination and such, there are a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, and the way I communicate with the universe is a lot more direct. So I don't worry about or think about angel numbers.
Yeah, like the Santeria, one of the methods they use is the coconuts, where their head is Obatala, basically a white being, basically the god of gods, head of gods, and the coconuts represent that, and of course the inside of the head, and they use the coconuts to form a divination, which is considered as I believe it's Obatala. I don't think I'm making a mistake on which being it is. I could be though. But that's the idea is you're communicating with God through these coconuts. So really it's just whatever is in tune with you and is in harmony with your psyche. I wouldn't use a bunch. I would pick one that suits you and stick with that method because then it'll become more consistent. And if the universe knows how it can communicate with you easier. You know, I mean, large part of those communications are on the receiver and knowing that they're receiving something and not putting their own thoughts in the way in that. So it's kind of the same thing. So they're as valid as they have meaning for you. You know.
So S. Steele says, "Oh, that's a lovely question, Brianna, and a great response too." And Brianna says, "Okay, that makes sense. It's all in how we view it. That makes sense. I get scared when I'm feeling ego identified. Thank you for explaining. I keep forgetting that I'm not my programming." So
So is everybody.
Violet says, "I lied. I have more questions about a hostile entity. Have you ever come in contact with a very stubborn one? What did you do? Just stand your ground? I've been standing my ground for a very long time. It makes me quite tired." I get angry. I tell them they'd better leave me alone or else they'll be sorry, and they believe me, and then they go away. So no, I've not met a stubborn one. I've met some that have tried to get through my shields or what have you. I was on one paranormal investigation where a spirit ghost was actually trying to enter into my body like several times, and I could feel it trying to do it. I felt it on the back of my head and trying to push in, and I just pushed back and said no. So, I mean, the kind of authority I'm talking about is like, it doesn't allow any questioning about your intent and what you mean by it and whether it is something that has to be followed or not, whether it's a suggestion. When I do things like that, they know I'm not making a suggestion. I'm stating a fact, and there will be consequences if they don't pay attention. So, yeah, I don't know how to explain that. I did do a video on natural authority. I did a class on natural authority that you can buy if you want to watch it on Zoom, where we talked about, I think, 3 or 4 different students or whatever, and we had pretty good in-depth discussion on the subject. And I can send you a link to that if you're interested, so you can like watch the video with what the other people have to ask and say about it. So Bree says, "That makes so much sense. I'm going to listen to this again later. Thanks again."
Oh, you're welcome.
Just a Girl says, "Agreed." Sophia says, "I heard some spiritual teacher claiming that only about 3% of humans have soul. The rest of them have not having on and are only here to distract the ones that do have from their soul mission." Thoughts? Full of it.
Disagree.
Absolutely and completely BS. Totally misunderstanding it, trying to make them extremely special and more important than anybody else. We're all in different stages of development. And that explains why some people seem to be really, really stupid when it comes to this kind of stuff. Maybe it's their first time out. Who knows?
But I concur. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
I mean, there are sociopaths, there's no doubt about it, and they seem not to have a soul because they have no conscience and they have no empathy. But I imagine that when they die, they find out that they actually did have a soul, and then they have to figure out how to deal with the stupidity that they did while they were alive and interacting with a brain that's not working or what have you, and enjoying themselves and having a great time. And I do believe that not everyone is what I define as a human being. Sociopaths would be in that group for me. I think that to be a human being is something you aspire for and work towards. But that doesn't mean you put anyone else down in the process. It's not about you versus them. It's about you versus you, about you becoming more of who you are and who you want to be and so forth. And getting in touch with empathy and care and kindness and all this other stuff that I think is one of the defining factors of being human. Certainly, we're seeing a lot of examples right now where people are not acting like what I define as a human being. That doesn't mean they don't have a soul. There's a difference there. And if he's worried about people being distracted from their soul mission, probably a cult leader, at least a wannabe cult leader, someone who wants to keep someone focused completely on what they think the mission should be, regardless of how the person might feel about it. That leads to, I don't know, ignoring your own impulses, your own thoughts and your own feelings and so forth, ignoring your intuition, not paying attention to that little voice inside of you that says, I don't know if this is the right thing for me, and trying to sort of impose their own view of reality onto other people. And if that is what you're getting from this person, I would steer away from them completely. I wouldn't give them the time of day, because that only leads to a bad outcome for you. But that's my opinion. You're free to follow anyone you want, but I wouldn't. I feel strongly about that, apparently. So there. Those are my thoughts. So take them as you wish. Jessica Girl says, I think I'm starting to awaken my ability to see auras, or at least every spirit's color. It started with the Fae, but I can now see it in people too. Do you have any advice? Should I buy a book? I don't know. I've never found any useful information about how to see colors in a book for myself, but that doesn't mean there might not be a book there about it. Interpreting the colors and what they mean, again, that's human interpretation of everything, and sometimes we're really wrong, especially when it comes to dealing with spirits and so forth. We have our own pretty serious prejudices that we're coming from when we deal with that kind of thing. So up to you. You might get some ideas. Just practice, see what it means. So S. Steele says, that's fair. I understand that angels appear in a lot of different spiritual practices. So I was just curious. Thank you, Ian and Siofra. Your take is interesting. You're welcome. Anthony Rio says, yesterday was my birthday. My car just died, but my friend is on his way to give me a jump start. Awesome. I'm sorry your car died. I'm glad you have a friend. And happy birthday. Teresa says, repeating numbers can be significant and the universe giving you a message. I keep seeing 444 during a trip I took many years ago to a very special event in my life. But I think this whole angel number thing is overblown and people are not being too discerning.
Well, it also depends on how you interpret the numbers. The way I would interpret 444 would be all four elements operating on all three planes. So that would be in a sense of completion, or it's 4 times 111. So
It depends on whether you're using
yeah.
numerology or not.
Yeah, that's exactly the deal.
Yeah.
It's on those
it's
things.
All systems.
Generally, I think they depend on what meaning you take from them. The universe is going to try to speak to you in a way you can understand. So, it's going to try to work with what meaning you take from things and from the numbers. So they can vary. My feeling is they can vary from person to person in their meaning, and you got to find it out kind of individually, or you can just use a generic kind of system. Like, since I'm really in harmony with the four elements and that, I go with the Kabbalistic approach towards the numbers and things and what they mean.
So S. Steele says, Ian, does that mean you'd recommend just pick one or two angel numbers, applying a specific meaning to those and communicate those to the universe?
Well, I would say that's considering the meaning. You For something like that, you'd want it to be the meaning that you'd give those numbers, something that's special to you or something. But yeah,
Letting the universe know what you think they mean can help.
yeah,
As far as
that's
then
basically the idea. Is things like the tarot cards. If they're proper tarot, each card has a specific meaning, and so that's kind of a generic way of communicating with the universe through tarot cards, because each one has a specific meaning. But if someone has used the tarot cards, if you get a deck that was well used by a person who really knew what they were doing, the new person using that deck will find it much easier to use. So yeah, there's a lot to it. You can use, if it means something to you, or you can use. I prefer to use like a generic, like tarot cards or something, because the meanings are already assigned and they've been used for years by people with those meanings. So it's going to have a stronger response than ones
because the
who haven't.
universe is already familiar
Yeah.
with that set of symbols.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
the angel
you
numbers
can
are kind of new.
you can certainly generate your own, and they can be just as effective. But it can take a lot more work to make them effective as ones that are already in use. And if the angel numbers are ones you like for that purpose, then yeah, go with those.
So, and she adds, you might very well be right, Teresa. Violet says, thank you for your answer. I will circle back. Timing this winter will be key how I do this. I appreciate you always for trying to help. And Brianna says, laugh out loud. Violet says, I will step out to dry hair, etc. now. I'll pop back in with hi. Okay, have a good time drying your hair. Robert says, S. Steele, you may want to use runes. They're way more connected to nature than angels' numbers. S. Steele says, I admire how everyone here seems so confident in their beliefs. I'm still in the research stage as I have a lot of fear connected to fundamentalism. Well, I don't care for fundamentalism of any kind myself.
I've been doing this 50 years, and my wife has been doing it longer. So
yeah,
we've gotten through a few of those things in her 50+ years of doing magical stuff.
Yeah, I'm 75 now, and I think I started when I was 4. So became aware of things around then, at least. But hey, confidence is a good thing to have when you feel you found your path. Everyone's path is very individualistic and unique, and so you create your own path, and no one's paths, everyone's path is slightly different. Even though Ian and I have been together for more than 30 years now, our paths are still our own, as well as we work together really well and so forth, but we have our unique approaches to everything.
Yeah, but the real trick is understanding what's beneath it. Then you just get to choose your method. If you understand the principles, then you can choose which method you use to express them.
So, Sophia says, thanks. Someone pointed them out and said that they look like a cult leader. Well, not just me then. Brianna says, try Emder Steel. It helped me with religious indoctrination so I can be reeled back in when things get stressful. Can't be reeled back in. I see, okay. S. Steele says, hi Brianna. Yes, I am trying to do EMDR right now, but I am still in the very early prep stages. Yeah, that's a good technique, though, for helping to unwind and uncover the threads and so forth of the links between those things. So good. I highly recommend that, too. Just a Girl says, thank you. Yeah, the color of Fae is totally different from those of humans. So I probably do have to find the meaning myself. I just don't know how. How could I try to understand human colors? Watch them, I guess. I mean, okay, when my son was young, he came home one day and he said, what does it mean when your teacher walks in the room and she's glowing bright red? And I looked at him and I says, well, it might mean that she's really mad at somebody. And it turns out that's what it was. So sometimes colors are obvious with people. But if you're an empath as well, you can figure more out with the feelings the person is having when you see the color, because sometimes the colors could indicate an illness that's either trying to repair itself or that is trying to come on. And I'm sure that there's a lot of nuances when it comes to actually reading auras, and I think intuition has a lot to do with it, like everything else. So try it out and see. NM says, after a series of prayers and words of gratitude, I saw a shooting star, the first in 30 years. Just a lucky coincidence? I'd like to think of it as a response.
Well, let me tell you, you can get a response from the universe. The universe has given me 2 staffs. There's a long story, but I ended up without the first staff through my own fault. So the second time the universe gave me a staff, it was flat out handed. It's like, here you go, from a store. It's like, here you go, you guys have these. And I got my second staff that way. And in case it was a coincidence, I'll let Siofra tell you the story of the crystal and how that came about, how it was missing the crystal when I got it.
Well, yeah, this thing was hand done, has all kinds of wonderful runes on it and so forth, and it had a place on top that was empty that had like a leather holder for a crystal. And the woman who gave him the staff told us that it used to have this wonderful quartz crystal in it, but someone stole it from the staff. And so Ian decided if it was really his staff, the universe would need to tell him by giving him the crystal. We didn't want
that was because we looked at a rock show and I couldn't decide, and I thought, I had no idea what crystal would be appropriate from a staff that I considered a gift from the universe. Universe is gifting me this. How am I qualified to put an appropriate crystal in it? How do I know what's appropriate for this?
Yeah.
I felt humbled and overwhelmed by getting my second staff this way.
And I thought, wow, that's a huge ask from the universe to provide you with a crystal. But I'm like, okay, this is your thing.
But see, that was it. That was it, though. I wasn't taking that like I want a crystal for this. I wasn't taking that approach. I was taking the approach of how could I possibly, we could have bought a crystal in the rock store. We were looking for one there. It's like, how can I possibly honor this gift sufficiently with any amount of money we have? I don't know what to choose. I felt totally unworthy. And that's why I got the crystal, because I felt totally unworthy to choose one properly. I mean, I considered it as a great gift to start with. The second rune, staff already covered with runes and things. So sorry, continue the story.
That's okay. You're doing great.
Well, I just wanted,
Yeah, it's a good thing to add. And he went into the Salvation Army, and there it was for what, 50 cents or a quarter?
Quarter.
They thought it was
A paperweight.
A paperweight, and it fits the space absolutely perfectly. And
Here.
I believe that it is actually the original crystal
Oh,
from the staff. He's going to go get it
I'm
right
going to
now.
go grab it real quick for the few people here that haven't
Seen it, yeah.
already. Yeah.
But it is such a perfect fit.
So talk about the universe cooperating in some cases.
Absolutely. Talk about a message from the universe. And it's just such an absolutely, and it's so perfect to fit. I believe that it's the one that was stolen from it originally, and it found its way back. That someone here locally donated it for one reason or another. So, it's pretty awesome. But while he's getting that, let's see. Carla says there's a girl named Montre Mater who helps people deconstruct from evangelical indoctrination. She's quite lovely and could be helpful. Give her a search. And Beth says, I'm listening as I do family time. Ron says, hello, all you great folks. Siofra, you are glowing a sweet green tonight. Thank you, because green is my core color. The one I get to see when I look at my own aura is this wonderful emerald kind of green, and it's just quite lovely. So Brianna says, I'm listening while I clean. And Just a Girl says, ha ha, thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
And I didn't ask the universe to give me the crystal either. My attitude was, I'm not worthy. What do I do about that?
So I'm waiting till this comes up so I make sure I'm showing it correctly. And this is the crystal. The size of this thing is huge.
I got it for a quarter at the Salvation Army. Just
And
after
it's clearly
we
a
left.
real crystal. You can see all the occlusions and everything in it. And this is the holder that was made for it, and it just fits right in there.
It fit perfectly. It was a perfect fit. I didn't have to do anything. The holder was already there for it, and it's exactly the perfect size.
Exactly.
And it fit tight and snug.
Yep. So there it is.
That kind of thing just doesn't happen in the universe, or happen by accident. But that was because I was humble enough to realize I wasn't worthy to make a decision there. I wasn't asking to be given another gift or to be given the crystal. I just said, I'm not worthy to decide. I don't know what to do about this. And then it just happened.
So Just Girl says, ha ha, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, and I'm starting to see yellow wings on my back forming. Cool. Brianna says, you guys are so cute. Listening to us tell the story. NM says, thank you. Violet says, hi. Carla says, that's all I saw Monday night. Green. Yeah, and green is definitely my core color, so yay. Violet says, wow, killer staff. Carla says, that's awesome. Sophia says, what it is means spiritually to have scoliosis. I don't think it means anything spiritually. I think that's just
a lot of times things are just the universe also has, it's not all karma. The universe has a lot of times these things are just accidental. I mean, really there's a lot of random stuff in this universe that kind of comes along.
And depending on how serious your scoliosis is, it might mean you need to see a chiropractor.
I mean, there could be some things like that, due to past life karma and stuff. But I think most of it is just most of the, and especially the annoying little things, are just random chance. You just happen to be wrong place at the
Or
wrong
genetics,
time, and it happens.
the
Yeah.
family you happen to be born into, the body you happen to inhabit.
Yeah, well, that's all called family karma. Same way we're in the U.S. We're part of the karma of our president now because we live in the U.S. So now we're facing karma, that's not really directly related to us, but we face karma directly related to the country we live in. So not only do you have your own karma to deal with, have the karma of all the groups you're in, the karma of being, for me, being a white person, and the way that the natives were treated with
all
children,
that stuff.
all that. But then I have some karma also because of my Native American blood. I have some of that karma, and it's all so it's all mixed up, and a lot of it's random. So
And karma's not always negative.
that's true.
I don't want you to get that impression that all karma is bad, because there's lots of good karma too.
Oh yeah, there's just as much. There's just as much good karma as bad, but about the scoliosis thing. So it could be past life stuff. Chances are probably better that it's just this life stuff, like maybe like Siofra said, genetics,
Or it could be somehow the way you were born and
just
everything
something
else.
totally accidental.
Yeah. And you don't have to attribute too much to it. Just see if you can find a solution to it or a way of dealing with it so that it doesn't impinge upon your progress as much as possible. So, I mean, really, it's about all we can do in some cases. Robert says, awesome wand. Is it smoky quartz or clear quartz?
It's
a staff and it's a clear quartz. It's too big to be called a wand. Some of my wands could be called staves because they're bigger than a wand, like my lunar stave.
Probably what about?
Well, it's about 4.5 feet, I think, high, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, 4 to 4.5 feet. Maybe it's only 4 feet. I don't know. I don't want to stand up and measure myself.
That's all right.
But yes, it's quite lovely, and it is a clear quartz. I know things don't always show up as well on camera here, but you can find certainly. Just a Girl says, can we see all your staffs? I have a video on all of my wands that you can look at if you want to look at some of the wands I've made.
Yeah.
No, not right. Well, yeah, you can get my staff.
It's up to you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll show you my staff though. It's in my room, of course. And I got my staff. I got my staff in Texas in like 1981, maybe somewhere in there, and it's gone through a number of transformations as far as how it wants to be presented and decorated and so forth. It was just a plain, as it were, staff to start with, but it likes people and it likes to be praised greatly. It has its own little ego, I guess. And I got that when I did my first and only psychic surgery healing for a woman that I met in Texas. It was a whole whirlwind kind of a trip. I have a whole video just talking about my staff and how I got it and the story behind it and so forth. So you can watch that if you're interested. One of my earlier videos, so not as good quality as some of our later stuff. But yeah, anyway, that will be coming along. Robert says, oh, okay, I will call it the Baton of Death due to the Halloween holy days. Okay. Ron says, wow, Ian, silver and gold sparkles from that staff. All of my eyes have become more open after beginning to visit these chats, reminding me of who I truly am. Okay, so when it comes into view, we will talk about my staff. Just Girl says, thank you. I'll see your wands next for sure. So this is my staff. And this is, I have an amber ball, which is sort of like the opposite of the quartz crystal. Amber is more
Electrical, yeah.
and the quartz is more magnetic. And then the shape ball is more feminine,
Yeah.
and the quartz is more masculine. So we sort of get a nice kind of flow of energy there.
Yeah.
And then everything on my staff has a significance to it. So I have a stone here that someone found on a beach in Mexico and brought to me, a holy stone. I have this that I found at the solar eclipse. I have a bell that someone else found in the middle of the jungle in Indonesia when she was on a trip there. I have a bear tooth that someone found up at the prison where I volunteered. I have a Tibetan bell that was found. It's like a 14th century or 12th century bell that was found in a 2nd BC Roman site, so it's sort of a time anomaly. I have 3 marbles that were given to me at the time I did the healing for the woman who gave me the staff, and it represents the 3 women who were there to do the healing. So, and this is a stone that I purchased that has a natural hole in it. It's a piece of bloodstone to represent the goddess. The first power necklace I ever made is up here. Yeah, so there's everything that's on the staff has got a memory to it. And then this is made from a deer testicle. So this represents, I have both of my power animals, the deer and the bear. My spirit animals are up here. So, and it is a nice curly piece of wood. And I added some stones. I beaded these stones on something and put them in there just because I liked the idea. I have like, I think I got iolite, amazonite, amethyst, rose quartz, lapis, maybe peridot on there. And I charged them all up for different energies. So that's my staff. And yes, the stone is amber. So Teresa says you also have the interview about your wands on the community section. Oh, right. That's right. Trinity says, hey, Siofra and Ian. Hello, everyone. Hi, Trinity. Brianna says, can some people be shape-shifting depending on emotional states? Some people look different whenever I see them, or maybe it's my perception.
It's your perception, and that's a
You
type
could be seeing an inner thing of them.
type of clairvoyance.
You want to put
If you
this
ask
over there
me,
too?
yeah.
Yeah. Although I do sometimes shapeshift when I'm channeling, so it'll be interesting to see if that shows up on camera when we do that. I'm going to try that and see what happens. Just a Girl says, wow, so beautiful. Carla says, love that, Siofra. Sophia says, how do you use a staff? Well, the staff is a magical sort of resume, as it were. It represents our authority that the universe gave us. Both of us got given our staffs. And the universe recognizes our authority over spirit beings and
Yes.
things like that.
Now, I will say that that's our staffs and our view of staffs. There are other staffs used for other reasons, like Palo have a staff that they use with some bells on it that they tap on the ground and call spirits with, and some people have spirits that live in their staffs. So the staff is living and they have to feed them and stuff, and so it's all ours represent our authority because that's what the universe gave us.
Yep.
For representing our authority. So.
And when I go and I do like a paranormal investigation, I always take my staff with me. So everything there can look at that staff and know who I am, what I've done, and what it means. So it is like a walking resume for that. So it is an interesting experience for sure. Like I said, it's had some definite transformations. And you can use it to cast a circle as well. I've used the staff to cast circles more than once. So has Ian used his for that. Robert says, so what about the amethyst online ritual you did last week? I had my wand ready. Yeah, well, it's posted on the community bulletin board on this channel. So you just go and click on it, and you got the link to the Zoom event, and you can go through it and see what it is. Uh, Robert says, wow, look at the size of that red piece. I think that's the amber ball. Yeah. Violet says, I came back to the room to see your staff, Siofra. It's amazing. I think I've seen the lunar stave. I'll watch the video. Sophia says, is the stone amber? Yes. Brianna says, wow, love this. Trinity says, that staff is beautiful. The staff appreciates it. When I go out in public, when people call it a walking stick, it gets annoyed. Sometimes I don't actually correct people anymore, but yeah. Carla says, what's holding the amber in place, Siofra? Is that copper? Yes, I made that. That's a sort of represents a dragon's claw. And I did that to keep that thing in place, and I put like a copper with the wires over top. I put a pentagram on the top of that holds it down like this. So I've got the claws coming up, and then I've got the pentagram coming down to keep the amber ball in place.
Yeah, which is a cool idea. It's harder to see in practice, but if you've got the staff, it's on camera, but you can look at the staff and see the pentagram real easy.
Yep. Sophia says, amber like tree sap amber? Yes. Yep. Sylph says, how do you know your spiritual animal? Well, it often comes to you and says, hey, like it did with Ian.
Yep.
I always knew that the deer was one of my totem animals, because total strangers would walk up to me and tell me that I looked like I had doe's eyes. Often. I mean, so many people said it so often that it was like, okay, apparently I have a deer in me.
There's a couple of things. I've always had an association with coyotes and things, but then Coyote walked up to me one day when I was meditating and says, I'm your totem. I'm your totem animal. So Coyote was my totem animal. And then other ways you can know are the experience, like the bat experience, which Siofra can tell you about.
Ian bats love him. When we go camping, they always fly around his head at night. But the best one was during the day, broad daylight, and he was out swimming in the reservoir, and I was sitting on a rock with a couple other people, and a bat came out of the woods on one side of the reservoir and circled around his head about 3 times, and then dove at his head, but didn't quite touch him, and then took off and went the other way. And it was hysterical.
So yeah, things like that. Sometimes it's a running into them a lot kind of thing, and sometimes they'll just flat out tell you if you're lucky.
Well, and acting unnaturally. If you just see an animal, that doesn't mean that they're your power animal or your totem animal or whatever. It's like there has to be some kind of an emotional connection that suddenly strikes you, and they do something that is not normal for their standard behavior in general when you see them in the wild. So that can give you a clue.
Yeah.
And you can adopt them too. I mean, like with the bear, when I lived up north, I wanted to connect with the bear spirit because I needed to learn how to be a better parent, a better mother. And I lived in a place that had more bears than people. And so I figured the bear would be a good thing to connect with, and it was a really easy fit. And so the bear shows up both as a totem animal now and as a power animal, which are different. Spirit power animals can be different. And then as a power animal, I have a black panther. And that's because of a connection I had with the panther when I was right out of high school. Maybe I was still in high school. And I went to the Washington National Zoo, and I had an encounter, like unbelievable encounter with a black panther. And then I also had a dream about one years later when I lived in Santa Cruz, where someone was sending 2 panthers at me to try and like hurt me. And I thought that was hysterical. And so they come around the corner figuring that I'm going to be like all laid out and whatnot. And I'm standing there with both panthers laying at my feet. So yeah, that was a miscalculation on whoever the heck that was his part. So, you get intuitions in your dreams and so forth, and similarities in your personality and core. And Ian is so obviously Coyote with his quirky sense of humor. And
sometimes I have to do things backwards to get it to work right for me.
Yeah.
Hold backwards.
So Flexible Philosophy says, hello, Siofra, Ian, love your channel. It's always lovely to see more esoteric traditions You never know what kind of practices are out there to discover, and these help a lot to expand one's perception.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron says, by the way, my wand crafting is very relaxing. I listen to each component as they are added per your advice, working well. Awesome. Yes, definitely a good way of doing it. And Robert says, that amber looks so reddish. Usually it's orange.
Mostly it's the lighting in here, but
I
it
think
is a
so.
dark amber to start with.
Yeah, it is a pretty dark one.
But it's more the lighting. I looked at it on the picture, and while our camera's pretty good, the colors just are pretty good, but everything isn't quite exact.
Perfect,
Yeah.
like we see it with our eyeballs.
Part of it is the way we have the lights placed in here. You know, we don't have a professional setup for lights. So
Brianna
part of it,
says,
too.
the spirits at your investigation when they see your staff. Yep.
Yep.
That's pretty much, and sometimes, unfortunately, they run away when they see me coming. Jessica Girl says, thank you so much for showing your staff. You've definitely changed with its presence. I don't know how to describe it, but you are powerful. Thank you. My staff and me are one. We really enjoy one another. Barbara says, Siofra, do you have a place I can send a picture to you? I want to show you my wand of amethyst. Yeah, send it to my email, siofrasmagicalcove@gmail.com, and I'll get it. Carla says, that's absolutely beautiful, Siofra. Facebook changed the layout, not Siofra. Trinity says, do you have a video discussing talking boards? Would love to hear your guys' perspective on the subject. Oh, Ouija boards?
Ouija boards, yeah.
I don't think I've actually done a video on Ouija boards. I've talked about it in these live shows from time to time. I certainly have used them in the past.
They can be pretty functional and,
Yeah.
and you know, don't necessarily have anything attached to them other than what a person attaches to them. I mean, mostly the problems people have with Ouija boards are actually because of their own fears and things coming back to haunt them, not actually problems with the Ouija board.
Oh, when I was a teenager, we had some scary times with the Ouija board.
Of course,
When I was a
one
kid.
could get charged up with negative energies, so then a particular Ouija board could have a bad influence on the people, but that would be because the energies that people being afraid and using it put into it accidentally. Because, you know, you charge up things like that, whether you're intending to or not, you charge them up with something.
But I can tell you, they definitely do not come preloaded with spirits. Teresa says, I've had 2 experiences of owls circling me overhead. The first time, it was 3 owls together, and the most recent time, only 1. Does that mean the owl is my spirit animal or totem?
Well, that's something only you're going to be able to decide if you have that intimate of a connection with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. I mean, it could be.
Maybe. Trinity says, love bats. Sophia says, what's the difference between a power animal and a totem animal? Okay, so a totem animal is like an inner self thing.
Yeah, in a sense, the totem animal is your basic nature, and the power animals are all attributes you might have. So a totem animal is more who you are in general, and the other ones, other power animals, would be basically attributes or things you have expressed as an animal form.
Or, you know, things that you've
So,
become acquainted with.
The totem one is like your base one. You're very, very, you know, I have a lot of stuff with Coyote. He was supposedly a Hyoka. He had to walk backwards and sometimes walk backwards and did things backwards and that. And I have a lot of that. The way I approach things seems backwards to a lot of people. So I have all kinds of connections with it. So it'll likely be that, where a totem animal is the one that's like fits your basic personality the best, and then the others are like would be like specific attributes of you or your abilities and things associated with that, or abilities you can get in touch with that you don't necessarily express all those things right away. But if one is your power animal, then it helps you get in touch with those abilities and things.
So Carla says, my spirit animals are hawk, turtle, and rabbit. Maybe frogs too, but they're recent. Teresa says, just thinking about the 3 owls, very weird. How rare that must be. Freaked me out. Well, maybe it was a couple and their baby learning how to fly. That would make sense. Yep. I'm sure that they must travel around in family groups during part of the year.
We saw a huge owl once at a time. It was weird.
Oh, that was weird.
It would be a weird omen. It's like the sun was all red because the
Fires.
fires and things made the sun all red, and it was twilight
And the
and
car was
dark, and the car was
overheating.
overheating, and then this thing flew up off the road in front of us.
Covered our car with its wingspan.
And it turns out over in that part of eastern Oregon they have the what they call great horned owl, which have wingspans of like
7 feet or
7 feet or something like that. So we saw this gigantic bird. It's like, what? There's nothing
And it was
that
right
big.
in the middle of the road in the dark, and we come across, and all of a sudden this giant figure comes up off the ground and flies over top of us, and I'm like, we're gonna die. That's it. We're definitely gonna die.
We had no idea there was any owls with that long of a wingspan in Oregon at all. So that was a shocker to both of us. But it was one of those, one of those experiences.
So Sophia says, thank you. How can I recognize what is my totem animal? Wait for it and see. I mean, when it happens, you'll know.
Yeah, that's the only way I can suggest. There's not any. I don't think there's any standard signs or anything of them showing you. Not, if you were from a tradition
Then
that
they
had
could
that,
probably tell you because
yeah,
they could recognize the spirit that you were.
yeah, but
So Rakota Symbola says, why? Why what? And Carla says, laughing my ass off, Siofra. Robert says, yes, I have had once Hawk's spirit guides. It deployed its wings in front of my window. I get along with a lot of animals, and clearly crows and ravens are also like assistants for me when it comes to me knowing things or connecting with things and stuff like that. But it's like the animal kingdom likes me pretty well, so that's a good thing. Teresa says, after that owl experience, what happened in your life?
I don't think anything.
Not,
I'm trying to remember. I don't think anything particular happened. We
no,
were just out there
but
on vacation.
it was a good example. It was a learning opportunity to see how the lizard brain interprets symbols and omens that may not have any actual reality. It was like the first thing was the red sun, and then the red moon. And the primitive part of my brain was like, this is bad. It's not supposed to be that color. This is bad. And my intellectual part of my brain is going, this is because there's smoke in the air, and my lizard brain didn't care. And then the owl was definitely the clincher. That was like, bam, that's it. These are all three really bad omens in a row. We're gonna die.
Yeah,
but we didn't.
We didn't have
because here we are.
Not only did we not have anything bad, we didn't have anything specific, nothing impressive, nothing. Just like
nothing.
Okay,
we needed to get a thing in our car. We did not know our car was overheating because there was like a relay or something or other that we never needed to use for a fan that we didn't know we had.
No, you're confusing two cars.
Two cars.
That's okay.
Well, whatever. Anyway, it was fine. We were fine. But yeah, it's just it's an example.
It would have been a perfect omen if it had,
if anything bad had happened after.
It turned out to just be a coincidence, but boy, that'll get you going and think you got an omen.
I know.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is like omens are very personal when it comes to anything like that. So it was a good learning experience, like I said, for both of us to see how many omens we could get in a row and still have nothing happen.
Not that omens don't happen, they do. Just that wasn't one.
Right, some of them are. So Ron says, I hope people understand and respect what a true treasure these teaching chats are.
Thank you.
Unending thanks for them. Thank you. And we appreciate the opportunity because we learn plenty from these ourselves.
We can't. We've talked it all out between ourselves, so we can't. Talking about these things between each other, we already know them.
Yeah.
Been together a long time, and that's good.
So apparently, I needed to.
So we need somebody new to talk to about it.
Apparently. Can't believe it's been an hour and 14 minutes already. Teresa says maybe the red sun and moon presaged the Weird Owl incident.
Maybe
nope,
so.
I doubt it.
No.
It was the fires in Oregon that made the sun and the moon. The owl had nothing to do with the fires. So they were far away from us. They weren't near us at all. I think it was just all a bunch of really interesting coincidences, and course, thoughts of Mothman ran through my head. Considering how large the flying creature was,
Yeah,
we
well,
weren't
and it
sure.
wasn't. We've been kind of watching the Mothman stuff
Right,
like
the prophecy, the
a few months
Mothman.
before that. Yeah,
So it was on our mind. And, you know, the ability for the brain to jump to conclusions, that's something to watch out for because, you know, a lot of times they're erroneous and nonsensical and have no actual basis in reality. And you can make some pretty
yeah,
weird
really.
life decisions based on things that don't matter and change the course of your entire personal history. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is, that kind of stuff can come under a lot of guesswork and then experience. You just kind of learn over many years what is and isn't valid.
Well, right, absolutely. Robert says maybe it's Nibiru, haha, whatever that means. Teresa says maybe the next time you see a red sun and a red moon, there will be something significant that the owl warned you about. I doubt it. I think you're trying to make something out of something that isn't there. And it's my experience and Ian's experience. So if it happens to you and it's significant, that's fine. But it's not significant to us.
Yeah, I generally those things are very individual, and I think a person's omens happen to them and somebody else's are likely very different. That's been my experience of things. Is yeah,
Teresa says, just having fun with this. Remember, I have a very literal brain and I do not understand that kind of humor.
you don't have a literal. Yes, I thought you said little.
Little, no,
Literal.
literal. Literal brain. My brain is very literal and I take words literally. So if you don't mean the words you say, don't say them, especially on a live show. Carla says, Mothman. Ooh, I forgot about him. That would have been trippy.
Yeah,
No
considering
kidding.
he presages like huge accidents and
I
things.
know.
don't want to,
Disasters.
Don't want to see the Mothman. Yep.
Yep. Robert says, red sun comes from the big red machine devil. Yes, we have bad associations with the color red. Sophia says, what do you think about the lizard people theory? Cockamamie, unlikely, probably not true. If I meet one, I'll change my mind. And I'm open to any experiences that might happen. But I'm skeptical. I haven't met one in person, so yeah, I don't know. Just a girl says, I'm going to sleep. Have a good week. Love this talk. Good night. Just a girl. Have a good sleep. Robert says, Nibiru, never heard of that? It's the 10th planet. Oh, that thing. I forgot about that. Coming back near Earth, according to some. Okay, is that the one that's going to kill us? Is that the theory of that one? The big giant red machine, the Nibiru. Yeah, I think we would see that one coming, though. More than a red sun. It would cause all kinds of tidal structure weirdnesses. Violet says, I love that, Siofra. I also have a literal brain. I also don't get jokes. Ron says, I wonder if people get so involved in the chats they forget to hit the like thumbs up. I don't know if I'm at this end of it. But hey, that's fine. Hey, there's so many theories. I ran across, oh, Sophia says, love your necklaces. Thank you. I actually made both of these. I ran across a thing about edible microchips in cheese this morning. And when I first saw the headline, I thought, yeah, that sounds kind of skeptical. And then I looked into it, and it is true. And the Italians are doing it to Parmesan cheese because people are faking their cheese and they're trying to authenticate their cheese and they're putting it in the hard part of the cheese that people don't eat. So you're not actually consuming microchips, but
So
the headline made it sound like, what? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I looked into it. I try to do as much research as I can with that kind of thing.
That's kind of funny. RFID your cheese, But I mean, if people are counterfeiting cheese, they counterfeit everything else, The maple syrup.
Well, the olive oil, that's a big thing too.
Maple syrup is a big deal. Genuine maple syrup, yeah.
Violet says, I always remember thumbs, love. And Teresa says, I used to have trouble understanding jokes, innuendos, until I spent time analyzing exactly why people would find the things funny. Okay. Robert says, Siofra, what is your favorite horror movie? I don't like horror movies, so my favorite one would be The one with the spirit kid.
Sixth Sense?
Yeah, Sixth Sense
Not
would
like
be.
The Wicker Man or something?
No, well, I like that one too. That's true. I suppose that's considered a horror movie.
There's
The
a
original,
couple,
not
yeah.
the new one with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
That one I find humorous, and I liked The Sixth Sense, which I don't find a horror movie
What
at
was the
all.
one about the wife?
The Butcher's Wife.
No, the one where she saved him by eating her
Oh, that was the Sorceress and
sticker.
the Friar.
Sorceress and the Friar. Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of.
That
Yeah.
was a true story. That wasn't a horror movie.
Well, but it's probably listed under a horror movie,
You
I would
think
think.
maybe,
Yeah.
or
I don't know,
paranormal,
but
or esoteric, mystical. Anyway, yeah, that was a pretty good movie though.
Yeah.
I like that one.
So yeah, I don't go for horror movies either. I used to have a friend that would drag me to some sometimes, so I'd watch a few of them. But yeah, it's not my deal at all. I love supernatural and occult stuff, and I could put up with it if it's light horror or something, or something humorous like the Supernatural series.
I have used horror flicks as a cure for the Christmas. One year, I was getting really upset with all the Christmas music everywhere and all the shows that were on TV, and they were all about, Santa and Jesus and miracles and everything else, and it was driving me crazy because it was just I was feeling smothered by it. And I watched a horror flick. I have no clue what it was, but I felt better afterwards. It sort of cleansed the palate, as it were. So yeah, but I have no clue what it was.
Yeah, mostly though, not our thing, but yeah.
Violet says, "I'm guessing thumbs has got to be a device thing, and most don't see it on a phone." Is my thought.
That could be.
Sevilla says, "I also do not get some jokes or sarcasm." Teresa says, "Twilight Zone, lots of interesting horror episodes. I don't like
Yeah.
gory stuff or violence."
Yeah,
I don't either.
Twilight Zone is entertaining. I
like
don't.
science fiction and thinking about strange things and so
Yeah.
forth. That's not what I
I
can.
almost don't consider Twilight Zone horror.
It depends on the episode, but yeah, same here.
There were shorter episodes and things. I mean,
And science fiction. Actually, we enjoyed The Institute, which was written by Stephen King.
Well, he wrote a couple we liked,
And
like the Green
Fire
Mile and
right right, and then there was the
the Prison Breakout one, the
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption. Yeah.
Yeah, the Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, and then there was the one Firestarter.
Yeah.
We like
Which I consider
paranormal.
that a horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I like paranormal stuff. So, I guess definitions matter when it comes to this kind of thing. Robert says, "Me too, Teresa. I like action movies, though. We just restarted watching Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Because it is so good if you like Marvel stuff.
Oh, so much better than the current Marvel stuff that's out there. Oh my God, what a difference in how they act and what they do and everything. And it's just so much better done. We
Yeah.
miss Disney ruined Marvel a lot. Anyway, so Teresa says, "I like adventures." Robert says, "I like comedy." And Teresa says, "I like comedy too." Carla says, "The Stand." I don't think I ever got into The Stand. I think I started watching it a couple of times and got bored. I'm not really into so much of the like good versus evil kind of stuff a lot. I mean, sometimes I'll watch them, but it's such a overdone trope kind of thing. But anyway, it's hard to find good witchy movies. I like good witchy movies. There's one with Virginia Madsen in it that is just fabulous. I can't remember the name of it right now. I've watched it a couple of times, and it's about a group of witches that have they have like a wonderful prayer poem or whatever that they do that I keep wanting to watch it again and write that down because it was just so well done. But anyway. Ron says, "The Outer Limits, real sci-fi." Suzanne says, "So many horror movies are nothing but one violent scene after another with very little plot. I don't waste my time with them." Yep. Clean Channel says, "How can I learn to do uncrossing and exorcisms?" I don't know. Uncrossing.
Unhexing and other.
Oh, I see. I do have a thing on hexing, or getting rid of hexes and spells and curses and things and talking about them, unbinding, that kind of thing. So I have a video on that. Exorcisms, it depends on your definition of it. If it's just a regular spirit possession, then there's things you can do with the person who is being possessed, and they can kick them out, but I don't do exorcisms. Robert says, oh, Carla says The Craft is probably my favorite, and Robert says, which witch is which? And I agree, Suzanne. Yeah, I'm into character development. I really need that in a movie. I like characters that transform and go through some kind of something that it's some kind of an epiphany during a movie. I find those movies much more engaging. My favorite movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, was The Fisher King, and that was one of the first ones that were like that really impacted me really strongly. Was The Fisher King, and I was astonished by the power of that movie. So I don't go for genres much. I know I've seen too many movies. I know exactly how they're going to go. I see the first 5 minutes of a film and I go like, okay, so this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and then we're going to end up, they're going to try and switch it back, but then we're going to come back to the beginning, and then we'll, and I'm almost always right about what's going to happen at the end, even if they make me doubt myself. Like, yep, it's just too much TV. Robert says, I like TV series like Buffy and Angel. Yep, us too. And the Vampire Diaries were kind of entertaining. And Robert says The Ninth Gate was a good occult movie. Well, that one was a little bit more hardcore horror-ish, but sort of on the edge.
There's also interesting things like the Umbrella Academy, which I liked a lot.
Oh, I love the Umbrella Academy.
I don't know what category you'd put that under, fantasy or science fiction or what, but
sort of science fiction, sci-fi.
It was unique.
Sort of psychic, time travel, parallel worlds thing, yep. Whatever.
We like unique stuff. Like The Three Body Problem was a recent one. Let's talk about a science fiction series that's great.
That was fabulous.
Yeah.
So Ron says, I think there's a new Hocus Pocus, the third. Yeah, I could never get into Hocus Pocus. I hated it.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the humor in it, and I just hated it. So
me too. Yeah.
Just like, nope, stay away.
Yeah, they came out with a couple of those. That's how I felt about them. I couldn't even get into it for the humor.
Nope.
It's like, yep.
Not my style. But hey, other people can enjoy it. I'm fine with that. You're all different.
Of course, it'll probably be coming out for Halloween this year again.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. And if there's a third one, they'll probably get that one out too. But we liked the Ghostbusters. That was great.
Yeah.
I really liked the thing when they asked him, "Are you a god?" And Teresa says, do you remember a black and white movie with a scene where a family was having dinner? There was a pretty woman and an old hag who was a witch. She magically levitated a pin and pierced someone. I have no clue.
Nope, not familiar with that one.
Sophia says there is the Sire's Supernatural. Oh, the series Supernatural. Yes, yep. We've rewatched that now for the third time.
Yeah, the whole thing, all like 12 seasons.
15.
15
yeah. Seasons.
That's because it was so good.
Yep. We really loved that show. Even if they did some stuff that annoyed me. But hey, it was a good TV show altogether. And the humor, we liked their kind of humor. Carlos says, do you remember The Dark Side? Kind of like Twilight Zone, but didn't last as long. I loved that show. Yep.
Yep.
So we've got 2 minutes left, people. So we're going to have to start saying goodbye. But this has been a nice little, talking about people's TV show likes and movies and stuff like that. Barbara says The Dark Side was good. Yep, it's sometimes hard to find really good quality shows. Sophia says, although they're killing their magical creatures, but they're getting a lot of mythical creators. Lisa says, fun chat, enjoyed it a lot. Us too. We had some really good subjects today. And Ian says, thank you everyone for chatting with us. And I agree. Thank you everyone for chatting with us. This has been entertaining and fun for us for a bleary, cold-ish, drippy kind of Sunday afternoon. And Violet says, bye, you two. Teresa says, everyone click like. Leah says, thank you very much. All right, guys. Awesome.
Awesome.
Everyone have a safe, wonderful week, and we'll talk later. Ron says, lastly, blessings to you all. Carlos says, great live. Love you all. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye. And Sophia says, good night. And Flexible says, thank you and have a lovely week. And Robert says, blessed be all.